Good afternoon. It is 3 p.m. and I'll call to order the Board of Directors regular meeting study session for Thursday, April 17th, 2025. And before we get started with the meeting, I did want to share some unfortunate news. Uh, the uh, our very own Lee Boyer, our wastewater treatment plant operator 3, recently passed. Lee Boyer was born on December 26, 1966, and was 58 years old and passed away after fighting a courageous battle with cancer. Lee earned Mission Springs Water District numerous awards during his tenure, uh, work at the Al Horton plant, and his contributions to the California Water Environment Association, including being named Plant Supervisor of the Year in 2006 and 2022. Lee joined the district in July 2000 as a wastewater treatment plant trainee and progressed through various roles, including wastewater treatment plant operator 1, operator 2, treatment plant lead, and ultimately named chief plant operator in 2006. Please keep Lee's families in your thoughts during this difficult time, and if we can, do a moment of silence for Lee. Thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Director Meyerhoffen,
Here.
Director Duff,
Present.
Director Martin,
Here.
Vice President Griffith,
Present.
President Sewell.
Here.
Thank you. We have quorum.
Thank you. Seeing that all 5 directors are present, we'll skip item 3. We'll also save item 4 for Monday. Item 5, rules of procedure, Counselor.
Yes, according to the rules of procedure that were adopted by the Board of Directors, all noticed meetings are conducted using Rosenberg's Rules of Order as a procedural guideline. Directors should refrain from responding directly to public comments at meetings of the board. The president of the board presides at all meetings and decides all points of order and procedure during meetings. The president is responsible for maintenance of order and decorum at all board meetings. No person should be allowed to speak who has not first been recognized by the president. All questions and remarks should be addressed to the president as the presiding officer. No member of the board should speak more than once upon any one subject until every other member of the board wishing to speak on the subject shall have been given an opportunity to speak, and no board member shall interfere with the orderly progress of a board meeting.
Thank you. Item 6, public input. This is the opportunities for members of the public to address the board on matters within the board's jurisdiction. Please limit comments to 3 minutes or less. State law prohibits the board from discussing or taking action on any item not listed on the agenda. Do we have any members of the public wanting to address the board today?
President Sewell, we do not.
Thank you. And we're switching around our order a bit. We will be going into closed session now before we move on to the rest of the agenda. Counselor, could you report the items we'll be discussing?
Yes, the items on the agenda for closed session include item 7, conference with legal counsel regarding pending litigation as Fournier versus Mission Springs. Item 8, conference with labor negotiators. The agency designated representative is the general manager, Brian Macy, or his designee, and the unrepresented employees are all Mission Springs employees other than the general manager. Item 9 is public employee performance evaluation. The title of that position is the general manager. Item 10 is conference with labor negotiators. The agency designated representative is board president Ivan Sewell or his designee, and the unrepresented employee is the general manager, Brian Macy.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we'll head into closed session.
Uh,
Right, we're back from closed session. Counselor, can you report out?
Yes, the board met in closed session. Item number 7 was conference with legal counsel regarding pending litigation, the Fournier matter. There was no reportable action. Item 8 was conference with labor negotiators. The agency designated representative, the general manager, the unrepresented employees included all MSWD employees other than the general manager. There was no reportable action on that item. Item 9 was public employee performance evaluation, the general manager. There was no reportable action on that item. Item 10 was conference with labor negotiators and the designated representative, the president, Ivan Sewell, and the unrepresented employee in that case was general manager Brian Macy. There was no reportable action on that item.
Thank you. Item 12, Human Resources Report, we will do on Monday, and we're going to make a slight change to our action items. We're going to move up item 16 to start, and that is the acceptance of the 2025 Water and Wastewater Master Plans. It is recommended that the Board of Directors receive and file the 2025 Water and Wastewater Master Plans and use the 2025 Water and Wastewater Master Plans as documents for developing capital improvement project schedules, policies, and budgeting guidelines. General Manager?
Thank you, President Sewell, members of the board. Our engineering manager, Eric Weck, will be walking you through this item. Eric, the floor is yours.
Thank you, General Manager Macy. Good afternoon, President Sewell and members of the board. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
Very good. Okay. Well, item 16 of this afternoon's agenda pertains to the district receiving and filing the water and wastewater master plans and using those documents to aid staff in developing capital improvements, schedules, and anticipated budgets over a 20-year timeline. Since February of 2024, staff and the board of directors have reviewed the progress of the water and wastewater master plans to its current phase. There are several things that the master plans must accommodate for, such as development, population growth, and looking forward to future requirements and regulations to address risk, such as hexavalent chromium, PFAS, etc. These documents should also dovetail with the upcoming long-range financial plan that is expected to be presented to the board next month. Coupled with the water and wastewater master plans are modeling that simulate water and wastewater flows, which are helpful to perform what-if scenarios for operational, capital improvement projects, or development changes, including fire flow analysis. Staff reviewed with the board of directors in previous workshops the condition of existing water and wastewater systems and looked at anticipated capital improvements with expected timeframes. This agenda item presents another opportunity for the board to review the master plans before they are finalized for next week's formal board of directors meeting on Monday. Finally, we are joined by Jennifer Mael from Mission Consulting Services, who took the lead and did all of the heavy lifting in developing the master plans for the district, and she is available to answer questions from the board. Before we open up for questions, I'd like to say, besides a few minor wording and some typo revisions that are currently being addressed, the reports will be ready to be finalized for next week's board of directors meeting. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Eric. Director Martin, any questions?
Not at this time, no.
Director Duff?
I just wanted to first thank Jennifer for her patience with us as we had the detour this evening. Was there any information that you felt you needed to bring to us since you're here? Is there anything you felt you needed to highlight or bring to our attention?
No, I just think it was a pleasure to work with staff, Brian and Eric and Steve and all of the operations staff. Everyone's been fantastic to work with, and we look forward to getting this approved.
Thank you, and thanks for all your hard work.
You're quite welcome.
Vice President?
Maybe not for her, but for the CIP 15, Fernwood Drive down Redbud Avenue down Skyline, new 8-inch gravity mains. That's assuming for sewage treatment, right? I'm on page, 205 is a map and 202 is the actual description.
Let me get there. On the sewer. Okay. What CIP number was that again?
CIP 15.
It's 15.
Fernwood Drive, Redbud, down Skyline Drive. Forgive me, this is on the sewer. John Wells with Deposit and Wells, he handled the sewer projects on this particular master plan.
Okay, it's I think I'm addressing it more towards our staff than you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that is that, so new 8-inch gravity mains, there's no mains there now, correct?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I can have that answer for you on Monday.
No, because I believe that's area K. Is it K or J? K, and is that not supposed to be next on the priority list for septic to sewer conversion?
I think it's J2 is next. I believe J2 is next in terms of construction.
Your mic.
Mike.
Thank you. I turned it off earlier. Redbud is right where J and K meet. I would need to take a quick look at that just to make sure. But K, as you asked, as far as from our previous conversation with respect to priority, K is one of the last priority.
I'm just asking because you're saying this phase is 2045, which is 20 years away, which makes it seem like that area is not going to get anything for 20 years.
Timing wise, that seems like a concern. Again, I need to take a quick look at that.
Okay. It just kind of hit me. It's like 2045, that's 20 years from now. And I know that that area was a bit more of a priority than some other areas. So
Vice President Griffith, you said you were in the wastewater master plan attachment?
believe so, yes.
What was that page again?
Page 202, and then the map is 205.
Ah, yes. Okay.
Can I see the description, please?
It's right at the top.
Can I see that in the map, please?
We can come back with you on Monday with
Okay.
an answer for that, because I'm looking at it right now and it looks like we have broken down each component of each assessment district and we put them in this order, and then we just tried to put it in there as where we thought they would be from a design perspective, but we'll get a better answer for you after looking through it. But yeah, it looks from an intention perspective that that's the last section and that's why it's last in a priority way. And then we tried to put something based on the existing timeline. With that being said, if we were to get $40 million from the Corps, then we could be able to move forward.
Yes,
with all of these.
that I realized, but it was just when we had the conversation, because I even asked, that has not yet been designed, but other areas were, if you remember that.
Yeah.
Was why is that priority when it's not been designed? You're saying we can do that, but then now you're looking at mains not going in until 2045, which seems to me you would put them in when you're putting the rest of the stuff in that area, right?
Yes, it seems logical. I believe what.
I'm sorry I bring the logic here, but
Yeah, that seems logical. It doesn't make sense. I believe maybe also the element of assessment district is not contemplated as well. So if that maroon, whatever that color is, that's in the K area is to be constructed, then Fernwood and the streets that are identified in CIP 15 would also be constructed.
okay, thank you. That's it.
And then I just had kind of a comment, I guess, of page 86 where it shows our reservoir kind of useful life. And I know there's plenty that are past their useful life, but they're still in use. I know we're working on doing the terrace reservoirs and things like that, but are there any else on that list that are like I guess it just scares me seeing the zeros, and if there's more critical than we realize or as a board.
So when we're pulling this together, sometimes it's very difficult to, in reality, the year it was built may not be what the useful life is, especially when you're looking at a steel tank. You'll go to see if there's any pitting in there and then you'll replace it. Steel tanks will last as long as the pitting and everything as well as it's maintained. In a previous life, I worked with a small community that had one of those almost a leg tank that was iconic. It was part of their website. It was part of their letterhead and everything, and they could replace it for about $100,000 more than it cost to put in larger manholes or manways and things of that nature. For $300,000, they repainted the tank, replaced all the pitting, made it up, brought it up to the standards, and they moved forward. And that was based on the lifespan that they estimated of the legs of that, as well as the thickness of the steel plates. They thought that could last for another 100 years. So these are just typical years, if you will. What we probably should do is year built and last time it was maintained. And one of the things that we're doing in other places in this is you're looking at the studies that lead up to some of these improvements. And those studies is when you look at it from a seismic retrofit, what the condition is, and then do the pricing afterwards. So in this, you'll see every 5 or 6, you'll see a line item for rehab or studies or stuff like that. This service life is more of a, worst case scenario type of thing, and you want to start planning for it that year. So in reality, when we do terrace, the years being built and the nameplates on the bottom of it's probably not going to change, but the useful life is going to be another 30, 40 years. So we need to probably look at that a little bit better and update that. I don't know if we'll have that ready for Monday, but it's something that we'll definitely incorporate when we do updates as we move forward. That's a very good catch.
But other than that, I really love how detailed the whole plans are, and I know staff kind of lives this on a day-to-day, but just for the board to have this to look at and be able to kind of dive deeper on certain aspects is really nice. So any other discussion? No. Thank you, Jennifer. It was Jennifer?
Yes.
For waiting around. It took us a while to get to this, but great work.
Thank you. No problem.
Item 13, public hearing, resolution 2025-05 to collect sewer fees on the tax roll. It is recommended to adopt resolution 2025-05, electing to collect sewer user fees on the tax roll. General Manager?
Thank you, President Sewell. As you stated, the public hearing will be on Monday, and we'll have to redo some of this as that we want to be part of the public hearing and on the record, but I know Arturo would like to go over some things today to answer any questions. Arturo?
Thank you, General Manager Macy and President Sewell, members of the board. Just a reminder, this is the 10th year that we're now collecting the sewer charges for residential customers on the property taxes. It's the same process that we've been using for the last several years. This does not indicate a rate change, only how we collect the fees. And it has had actually a great impact to the district, very positive, because it has significantly decreased the number of delinquencies we have for our customers, which then turns into less late bills, liens, phone calls, door hangers on properties. That amount of the savings keeps going up every year as we connect new customers to the system, so much that we're actually looking to see if we can do something similar with the fixed fees of the water accounts, just because it is a significant savings to the district. After the board approves, we basically send that letter to customers to have them prepay if they wish, and this is through June 30th. Otherwise, the amounts go to the property taxes, and that's how we collect it. It's a benefit to the district because we're on a teeter plan, which means that the county pays us the amount that we send, and if there's any accounts that are delinquent, the county goes after those accounts, and they keep the amounts that are delinquent, fees and interest. So, but we collect everything that we've sent to them already. So it's actually a very good benefit to the district. And at this point, I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Arturo. Director Duff, any questions?
Just a verification. In years previous, I don't know if I'm just blending all of the grids with numbers together, but I had thought that we had received a lot more than just one page, but it does say that there's 9,284 records included in this one page. So this one page is representative of all of our sewer connections in our district, even though it's not listing them all, correct?
Correct. That's the summary. The main information presented is the amounts.
Perfect.
And individually, we do go over each single family and multifamily property with the individual amounts, but you're correct.
Thank you very much.
Vice President? Director Martin? Director Mayor?
Say the same thing I've said before. I'm not in agreement with putting utilities on the tax rolls.
And I have nothing further. Thank you, Arturo.
Thank you.
Item 14, Resolution 2025-06, authorizing agents for the state and local cybersecurity grant program. It is recommended to adopt Resolution 2025-06, authorizing the following positions within Mission Springs Water District to apply for federal disaster assistance on behalf of the district. The General Manager, Assistant General Manager, Director of Finance, and Director of Operations. General Manager?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, President Sewell. Currently this is tied to cybersecurity, so our Innovation and Technology Manager will take this. Kurt, like to speak to this item?
Thank you, President Sewell, members of the board. This is just a small requirement for the onboarding of our cybersecurity grant. It's just the governing body resolution that we need to have approved that gives GM Macy, Assistant General Manager Marion Champion, and Arturo Ceja, our Director of Finance, the authority to make decisions on behalf of the district. So it really doesn't change anything. We've done this before. This is just kind of the red tape of what we need to do to actually follow the guidelines of the grant.
How much is this particular cyber? I know you were the one that put it together and
Yeah, about 246,000.
I didn't see it in the text, but I knew it was in the staff reports. Good.
Thank you. Director Martin, questions and comments? Director Mayo? Director Duff?
No, thank you.
Vice President?
Yes. Once we do this, how soon till that gets here?
That is up in the air at the moment. I just got an email from I got an email from Cal OES yesterday, so the grant has not been canceled. But I could actually read this to you. I have it ready to go in case that question came up. On April 14th, 2025, the Rhode Island District Court issued an order reinstating its April 4th, 2025 enforcement order, which provided that FEMA end its manual review process and comply with the court's order that FEMA not pause or impede the disbursement of federal grant funds. And this is Cal OES speaking, we still have not received disbursements for any pending requests related to, and then they list a bunch of grants, including this one, and thus have not been able to provide reimbursements to subrecipients. We will continue to keep you informed of significant developments as information becomes available.
I do believe that has been appealed. So just asking. So
at the moment, we are continuing as though everything's going to work out great, and hopefully it will.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Kurt. Moving on to item 15, authorization for augmentation of the capital budget. It is recommended to authorize the general manager to augment the capital budget for job number 11776, the Energy Conservation and Efficiency Services Plan by $405,000, increasing the total budget from $150,000 to $555,000. General Manager?
Thank you, President Sewell. I'll ask our Director of Operations, Danny Friend, to take this item. Danny?
Thank you, General Manager Macy. Good evening, President Sewell, members of the board. Just for some clarification before I get too involved in this, the Energy Conservation and Efficiency Services Plan, that name is the name of the job number that we use to track costs, which we effectively know is currently our PPA project. So this budget augmentation request is necessary to cover costs related to project management, administrative oversight, administrative time, staff time, site coordination, inspection, legal costs, and environmental compliance. The initial budget of the $150,000 was allocated for assessments and plan development for the original NG project, if you all recall that project. We have been tracking costs towards the original $150,000 since the beginning of 2023. Costs incurred to date to cover staff and admin time, fully burdened admin time, consultant oversight, analysis of the solar benefits, and these are before we actually had NG come on board. Then once NG came on board, we did project development, staff time to cover review and submittal of the interconnection applications, conceptual review, agreement review and approval, funding review, because we were looking at doing that with the NG project. Again, we did a similar process when we brought the PPA to the board and we had to do contract review. Accounts payable items, as you know, we had a consultant, Kenwood Energy. Kenwood Energy was instrumental in providing services to review the NG project. Later, they spoke with us about what a PPA could do for us. They put together the RFP. They helped in the selection process to select the vendor that we're currently working with. And then they also worked for the PPA agreement review, as well as been looking at all the design, proposed design. Legal costs, review of the NG agreement, review of the stat and PPA agreement, and then existing project management that exists. So those are some of the costs that we have incurred to date. One of the things I didn't provide it. I specifically didn't have an attachment for this item, but what makes up the $405,000 is an estimated, if you recall, in June, I believe it was July, we secured. I'm sorry, take that back. In September, we did a contract with Kenwood to be the project management, construction management. So there was $100,000 that we needed to do to cover that cost. We accounted for an additional $50K for staff admin time. We have another $100K in there for site inspection and coordination. Again, the project is going to be constructed by a third party, but we still have to have site coordination. They're active sites. We still have to make sure that they don't have facilities. And then there's certain things that we want to ensure that get installed on our property as part of that lease agreement. So that's where the inspection comes from. Also in December, we brought a $55,000 contract for CEQA for Tom Dodson Associates. These are the costs that are contemplated in this augmentation request. Legal costs, and then we threw for $50,000. We threw a contingency for $50K as well. That's how we arrived at the $405,000 for the lease. One of the things I do want to just bring to light is at the last workshop, there was a comment made that this PPA wasn't supposed to cost anything. And yes, the value or the, with a PPA, there should be no upfront costs. The solar developer handles the financing, the installation, and the maintenance of the solar ongoing. That in comparison to the project that NG brought forth, which was something that we were going to own, we were going to finance, that's where the no cost statement comes from. So this means the district doesn't need to make significant initial investments for a capital project. But all the things that I listed for what this is for, we have to manage our consultants. We have to actually have staff time. We have to pay bills. We have to do everything else for the consultant that's acting as a project management company. And that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Director Martin?
Nope.
Director Martin? Director Duff?
Okay, I'm glad you made your last comment because that's kind of where I was at trying to understand what you were asking for. So I appreciate you listing your estimated, the costs that you are estimating right now, the 100,000 for the contract for Kenwood, the 50 for staff. But I do have a couple questions. When we look at yes, just a couple questions. Yep. When we look at our press release and we look at the contract in September that you referenced, we were under the impression that Trident would facilitate the design, construction, and installation of 4 megawatts of renewable solar energy at 7 sites. Now, we understand from a recent meeting that we're not doing it at 7 sites, but wouldn't NEPA, CEQA, those type of things be on them?
The contract specifically excludes CEQA. So somebody has to be the lead agency. So as we operate, we are the lead agency in our CEQA process.
Even though they're the leaseholders of the property until it's done.
Correct.
Because that's where I kind of have an issue with this is that, they sold us on, we're going to do this for you at all of these existing sites that aren't going to require those things because they're developed, right? Now we're going to do it on undeveloped land and it's going to cost us these inspections. So I have hesitancy with all these solar companies. And again, I kind of feel a little bait and switched in them. I knew we had to have a contract manager. I knew we needed to do that. I knew we had Kenwood for that. I knew there would be some staff time. But an additional 400,000 plus the NEPA and the CEQA, when it seemed as though that was what them as the leaseholders of the property until they completed construction, I thought that was on them. So I guess my concern or question is, are these costs for NEPA and CEQA because we're now moving to just the 3 locations that have not all been disturbed? Is that why some of those costs now exist? And 2, and I guess maybe this is a legal question, but the Trident Mission Springs LLC that now owns them all, weren't they supposed to take care of everything to get us the 9 megawatts? So wouldn't that include any inspections or costs of inspections?
Thank you for that additional information. I believe I understand your question better. So the CEQA process has, by the language in the contract, has always been on the district. As far as the costs that we brought to the board in December for that contract or for that work, the very little work, which is the notice of exemptions, is minimal. The district was always planning a NEM2 NEM site for the regional plant on native land, right adjacent to our existing. And we've always been planning a Res BCT site north of our existing footprint. Because both of those areas are native, they are going to go through the initial study and the mitigated negative deck process. That's where the bulk of that cost comes from. So the fact that we've made some changes and reduced the NEM2 sites that are existing, they really have very little significant impact to the cost of the CEQA component. The bigger lift in that CEQA process is the initial study. And it's going to happen whether the site is was as presented to the board during the contract negotiate, or when we were contemplating the contract approval, or today as we're talking and making it larger.
And is Kenwood Energy's contract increasing? Have they put in a change order? Is their anticipated required work included in this? Is it based on their initial contract that was before these changes and et cetera? Are we expecting another change order from them?
At this time, there has been no discussion. The best way I can answer that is the work that's been done to date is within the scope, so we're not working out of scope, but I believe because we're taking a little longer to review some alternatives, there may be. I can't guarantee that there won't, but at this point in time, there's been no discussion.
And so it's staff's opinion that the changes in the initial plan that we had with Trident and with the other company, Stanton, whoever it was, the contract that we are operating under for the PPA, we feel confident, staff feels confident that we are going to maintain that $300,000 savings that was promised on an annual basis, and that we are getting the terms of which we anticipated initially, or do we feel we're compromising a bit with these changes?
As I mentioned in our last meeting when we discussed this, there was always the idea that anything that changed where a project site was no longer feasible, it was always intended that it could move over to the Res BCT. We haven't seen the final product as far as if there's going to be a proposed change in any type of the kilowatt cost that we've negotiated in our PPA. So at this time, I can't answer that. What I can say is just to do housekeeping, the fact that the way that the agreement's structured, it does identify that this is what we're going to build. When the cookie crumbles, we will likely have to bring that instrument back and do an amendment just to go ahead and memorialize what we actually constructed. But right now, we're still working through that process. One of the last things I know I didn't answer is the question on the all-inclusive cost. Weren't they supposed to cover these things? So as the permitting authority, we're not quite set up like the city would be, like where they would call in an inspection process. So we are going to have to do some of that as the permitting authority. The fact that they are working on sites like the Horton plant, they're going to be working at um, the NEM2 site for the regional plant, although the footprint is on native land, the conduit that's going to connect to our meter has to come into our plant. So it's not uncommon to provide those types of oversight. And I refer to them as inspections. We're not necessarily providing inspections to sign off on their work. We're providing inspections just to have oversight as a person on the ground to work with our project management and construction management team so that we have that daily communication and oversight. So that's more along what those costs would cover.
Okay.
Did I answer your question? Cole?
Yeah, I think you understand where some of my concerns from the last meeting to this one, where they've stemmed from. But when I went back and looked at our press release and that contract, and it seems so clear. And I also just want to say that the way that it was presented made it appear as though staff had made some sort of mistake or overlooked something. And that's not the case. That's not what happened. And so I just wanted to make sure for public purposes, it's clear that this was changes made at the bequest or behest of the contractor because of multiple changes, not just the water pipe that was discovered down the middle of one of the rows of solar, but they have a lot of, because they're at risk for this, and they have a lot of changes because they've had a lot of money promised clawed back. So I want to make sure that staff isn't taking the blame because they're trying to make it seem more palatable. I want it to be accurate for the public to appreciate and understand, because I know you guys have all worked very hard since NG, and we have all had so many meetings on this. So I just want to make sure that the public clearly understands that these changes have a lot to do with executive orders that change the money that they're getting for their projects, and they have concerns about getting that, so they need to consolidate their expenses. And I get that. I just wish they would have said that instead of making it appear as though we didn't give them all the information.
And I appreciate
don't
that.
have to-
No, I appreciate the clarity for the public's
My
sake.
soapbox.
Yeah, no, it's certainly, Director Duff, I appreciate that. All I want to say is there hasn't been a lot of that passing the blame at this time. So
It's just the way it was initially presented. That's how it appeared. And that wasn't facts. So I wanted to make that clear as to why I have extra concerns about extra costs coming in on this contract.
So as noted in our last workshop, this project is starting to gain a lot of speed, and I presume we are going to bring this project back to the board in one fashion or another at the next board meeting. Thank you.
Vice President? And I don't have any questions, but just thank you for the further clarification. I feel like a lot of these increases were seen, and it's more of a housekeeping type thing to increase the budget. But I appreciate Director Duff, your kind of deep dive into that just to get us a better understanding. So thank you, Danny.
You're welcome.
Item 17, contract amendment number 2 with Tom Dotson and Associates for on-call environmental consulting for preparation of California Environmental Quality Act documents of the Groundwater Quality Protection Program. It is recommended to authorize the general manager to negotiate and execute a contract amendment with Tom Dotson and Associates in the amount of $97,750 to prepare technical analysis and studies that meet the California Environmental Quality Act and National Environmental Protection Act conditions with a 10% contingency in the amount of $9,775 for a not to exceed contract amount of $107,525. General Manager.
Thank you, President Sewell. This item will be handled by our engineering manager, Eric Webb. Eric?
Thank you, General Manager Macy. Good afternoon, President Sewell and members of the board. Item 17 of this afternoon's agenda pertains to a second contract amendment with Tom Dotson and Associates of their on-call environmental consulting contract. The proposed work will have them complete a California Environmental Quality Act study for the entire groundwater quality protection plan within the district's area of responsibility. Now, the last comprehensive CEQA, which is California Environmental Quality Act, the last time a comprehensive CEQA document was prepared for the GQPP and that was done back in 1998. Assessment District 18 covers 6 sub-areas, as well as areas near the I-10 freeway and Indian Canyon Drive. In December of 2024, MSWD staff met with representatives from the Army Corps of Engineers and brainstormed on how to streamline the environmental process for both NEPA, which is federal, and CEQA, which is state, coverage, and move faster towards the ultimate goal of construction. The Army Corps of Engineers suggested to have the district prepare and finalize the CEQA document and have the Army Corps of Engineers use that document to prepare their NEPA, which is federal document. So staff solicited a quote and a fee from Tom Dodson and Associates to prepare this CEQA document for the district, and the quote received from Tom Dodson and Associates was $97,750. The upside to this is that there's a potential to shorten the environmental phase and ultimately get projects within AD 18 under construction with the Army Corps and improve our ability to secure state grant funding by having shovel-ready projects. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Eric. Director Duff? Vice President? Director Martin?
No.
I think that does it. Thank you for the presentation, Eric. Item 18, contract amendment with Downing Construction Incorporated and budget augmentation for the construction of the regional sewer conveyance line. It is recommended that the general manager be authorized to execute a contract amendment with Downing Construction for additional costs due to unforeseen tasks and field issues during construction of the regional sewer conveyance line for a not to exceed amount of $138,932.59. General Manager.
Thank you, President Sewell. This item will also be handled by Eric Buck, our engineering manager. Eric?
Thank you, General Manager Macy, and good afternoon, President Sewell and members of the board. Item 18 of this afternoon's agenda pertains to a contract amendment with Downing Construction for the construction of the conveyance line from the Dos Palmas lift station to the new Nancy Wright Regional Wastewater Reclamation Facility, as well as constructing a diversion structure at the Horton Wastewater Treatment Plant to allow for critical maintenance to occur. One significant issue pertaining to the change order request is the recent Southern California Edison delays and the temporary pausing of work of placing the conveyance line through SCE's easement along Little Morongo Road, in turn delaying the diversion structure work after the Nancy Wright Regional Wastewater Reclamation Facility was in operation. Ultimately, the district and SCE came to terms, and construction of the conveyance line was completed, and the Nancy Wright Regional Wastewater Reclamation Facility began operation. However, due to the contractor's extra remobilization that was needed to return to the site, the available contingency on the contract was reduced, and the contractor's completion schedule was affected. Therefore, a requested budget augmentation of $138,932 will cover a portion of the electrical work that is remaining, as well as replenishing the project with a contingency, which will accommodate any minor extras for the remaining work on the diversion structure at Horton. These costs will also fall under the grant reimbursement for the conveyance line project. In terms of the project schedule, work is anticipated to be complete within 3 to 4 months once the district approves this change order. So just to be clear, there is still a little bit of project contingency left as a result of awarding the project to Downing. However, the change order in the amount of $234,187, some of that is covered and can be funded by the existing contingency that's left. So the budget augmentation of $138,932 will take care of the remaining, as well as create a contingency in the amount of about $56,900. And I've prepared a little breakdown of that description here. Are there any questions?
Director Martin? Director Meyerhoffen? Director Duff?
Eric, what was the date that we did the change order for the proposed electrical CCO initially, the 250,000, or was it closer to 500,000, the first amendment?
Ooh, the First Amendment. I do not have that in front of me.
Okay. I'm
Okay.
a little confused by the reason, because if I look at what I was able to find and see when we did the initial change order, we were already aware of the SCE issues. We were already aware of the burrowing owl. We were already aware of the impacts and changes that Tropical Storm Hillary had made when we had given them the first change order. So I'm having a little hard time understanding how they miscalculated that change order, or what is different, or what changed in addition to those things that were already existing at the first change order before this came to us.
Well, I think if it wasn't for the work that had to be done for the Hurricane Hillary, that work, if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be having this discussion, because the available contingency that was awarded with the contract, the 10% contingency that was awarded with the contract, that Hurricane Hillary ate up a lot of that contingency with a little bit remaining. Likewise, when this project was initially bid, per addendum number 3, there was a $50,000 allowance for the diversion structure. And with the understanding that, yeah, we're assuming that it's going to cost $50,000 for that work to be done. However, knowing that I believe we were trying to meet a certain deadline on getting this project advertised for construction. So with the understanding that we were allowing a $50,000 allowance, and then the contractor would provide us more detailed specs, equipment and specs to be provided for that diversion structure. That's the reason why the cost of the diversion structure really is, I believe it's $284,000, but there's already a $50,000 allowance incorporated into the contract.
Right. Thank you.
Vice President?
Not so much a question as maybe a request for staff overall. We have our little box with financial data and the funding sources, which has been very, very helpful. But as I look, I see budget adjustment needed. Is there something we could do maybe starting the next budget year where we're actually keeping track on itemized and cumulative amount of budget adjustments? Because taking in little bites like this, it's like, oh, okay, it's only this much, it's only that much. But as we're approaching the end of the budget year, it gets a little difficult for us to keep track of how much in budget adjustments we've made over the past year. Just to kind of get an idea, are we not budgeting properly? Not saying we're not budgeting properly, but you know what I mean? For these projects, how much of this is consistently eaten up? How many times are we consistently over budget on projects? And have we ever, now this begs the question, have we ever been under budget on a project?
Yes.
Okay. Next time
Yeah.
that happens, let me know. I'm going to buy a lottery ticket. Because I see a lot of these, but I can't keep track of how much we are consistently adjusting our budget. And I think it would help us tremendously to really make better decisions when it comes to this stuff. So just throwing that out there.
Not to necessarily speak for our director of finance, but I know Arturo tracks that diligently in our capital budget. In that one big spreadsheet, he knows how much we add in a given year. he will be able to provide that information as we go through the budget. I'm sure he'll show the 2024, where we ended in 2024, and then how we're going to add to that going in 2025. So we will add that as part of the budget conversation so that you will know that number as a totality number.
But if we could have something every.
On this as well?
Yeah, so that we're like, okay, we're. So.
What I would like to do is keep the box the way it is because it fits well. But what we probably should do when we're going through the process and having this discussion, we probably should say added to what we've already done before is now this, yeah, just in the oral report. Yeah. In the oral report, we'll add that.
Thank you.
Right. And I have nothing further. Thank you, Eric. Oh, yeah, no problem. No problem.
I forgot something. Eric, you mentioned that Tropical Storm Hillary was a big part of this issue, but aren't we getting reimbursed from FEMA or other entities for the Hillary repairs? Or did we hope that that was happening and we got stuck holding the bag?
Eric, let me take this one.
Yes, sir.
So FEMA is reimbursing us for things that we actually had that got tore out or we had to remove and replace. In this particular case, they were getting close to that and we had to redesign it because we had to go so much deeper. And because we were going so much deeper, there was extra cost because there was more pipe. They had to do more excavation and the shoring and everything had to be expanded because it was just flat out deeper in some locations, especially leading up to that. So in reality, it was the depth that we had to deal with as we're going across it.
It wasn't storm damage repair that cost the money. It was the storm carving a new
Channel.
and a new. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Eric.
I did state that correctly, correct, Eric?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Yep.
Right. Item 19, rejection of construction bids for the GQPP Assessment District 18 Area D3 Sewer Construction and Waterline Replacement Project. It is the staff's recommendation to reject all bids and not proceed with the Area D3 Sewer Construction and Waterline Replacement Project due to increased construction costs. General Manager?
Thank you, President Sewell. Eric, would you like to take this? Engineering
Yes, sir.
Manager? Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, General Manager Macy, and good afternoon, President Sewell and members of the board. Item 19 of this afternoon's agenda pertains to staff's recommendation of rejecting all bids received for the Area D3 Sewer and Waterline Installation Project. On December 2024, MSWD solicited construction bids for the D3 Sewer Construction and Waterline Installation Project. And the lowest bid received was from Borden Excavation in the amount of $2,696,628. Staff reviewed the bid and added the permitting, inspection, and other ancillary costs, and coupled with the grant and assessment proceeds from Area D3, staff found that the construction bid exceeded the available project budget, even with the Department of Water Resources grants taken into account. Staff has presented this project to the board on 2 separate occasions in the recent past. And the board of directors, the general manager, and staff reviewed the details of the budget and calculated that approximately $17,000, a $17,000 subsidy per lot would be needed to fund the project. Given that there are 102 lots in the Area D3, the district would need to subsidize the project more than $1.7 million. Given the foregoing facts, staff recommends that the staff recommendations would be to reject all bids received for the Area D3 project. And then take a look at this project funding in the future. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Eric. Director Duff, any questions?
No questions. I think we've kind of beaten this as much as we can, and I think we all are regretfully at this juncture. But there is one comment I wanted to make in regards to all of the septic to sewer assessment district projects that we've discussed so much. Is there or has there been conversation with the city in regards to any planned or potential development in any of these districts that could potentially bear some of the cost if we coordinate it?
I believe the only thing that comes to mind very quickly is when we try to coordinate any pavement restorations or any pavement repairs the city is working on to pay for some of the uh, surface rehabilitations that would be necessary for our trenching. And we do that on a consistent basis. For example, right now the city's doing Hacienda. We already have a sewer through Hacienda, so we couldn't move a project up. So yes, we do work with the city to try to combine these projects when we can. And if there's adequate funding, then we do move forward with them. But right now, there's nothing that the city is doing that would help us from that perspective.
And no developer interest in any surrounding areas that, because I know like in the city of San Diego, I know that there were businesses that were getting underway and going through, application processes with the city of San Diego. And they were able to say like, oh yeah, you can do that there, but you've got to build a bike path and a locker system 3 blocks away as part of your development impact fees. So I'm just wondering, like, is there any way for the benefit of our public and the benefit of our groundwater that we go back to staff with our map and say, hey, do you have any interest in these areas from any developers, and what has been the interest and discussion? Is there any way that we can get any movement? It was just a side note, a side thought of an out of the box way to see if there's any way to resurrect these assessment districts before they sunset.
We are continuing to look for more funding to try to move as many of these areas as we can. I think what you're making reference to is more of a mitigation of a fee that the city would require. We don't have anything similar from a wastewater perspective, but obviously the grant funding and the grant proceeds that we try to that we're going after with whether the Corps or even at the state, we're just going to continue to do that and try to reduce that delta. So, but no, that's a good idea, and obviously we're looking at every avenue we possibly can to try to move these projects forward.
It's kind of excuse me, that's kind of a hard question for the city to answer, because even if a developer comes in and gets approved to build something, doesn't mean they have to build it. And we don't know who might come in next to build it. So it's a tricky question for the city to answer.
And these are all individual lots, so when they come in, they don't have as much. I'm gonna put this, when you have a large development, you have a bigger pool of money. This would cost about 87,000 extra per lot to subsidize all, and they would all have to get done in order to do that. So
I think I have to clarify a little bit of what I meant, because I didn't mean it like that. I think I more meant like if they knew that there was this potential development of a restaurant, a library. We had one of those, bad example, but something like that, some sort of a bigger project that was coming in at a corner adjacent to any of these districts that we could then use as part of the development requirement. I'm trying to think outside the box and looking at any other aspect that we haven't.
That's a good idea, but
I get how
until,
hard
until the shovel goes into the ground.
it's the same reason why I'm not willing to agree to pay to pave curbs when we don't even know what businesses are actually going to show up and build to need the curb in the first place. So I understand.
We actually had a unique possibility of a commercial development that was looking potentially of working with us and contributing their portion of that project cost to help get a sewer from point A to point B, which we could have used and leveraged, knowing that we already had the design in that area. We also had some water line improvements because there was rear yard easements, very similar to the discussion about D3, but it was some outside business that needed that. In that particular case, the reason we didn't bring it to you, and you haven't probably heard about it, is because when we were working with that commercial development, they realized that they may have existing capacity within their existing system and not have to build anything new. But yes, we're always looking for opportunities to try to partner with commercial or any type of large property to try to use those funds in that exactly the capacity that you suggested. Sometime I'm hoping that we'll start bringing some more of those to you as development continues. But as we've been talking about what we saw in DC and things like that, we don't know where the economy is going to take us. But no,
Vice President, Director Mayo.
Director Duffy, you're on the right track, and I was just sitting here thinking that the city has now changed to where if a developer comes in and they get approved, they have 2 years to start building. I was thinking back in the old days where it just went on for 5 years, they renewed it, which was really a complaint I had when I was on the planning commission. But you might be right. At least we have 2 years knowing that it's been approved. We can keep an eye on that and have some kind of idea what's coming within the next 2 years.
Director Martin? And I have nothing further. I think to echo Director Duff's comments, it's unfortunate, but it's just not something that we could sustain if we were to do this one, all the other assessment districts. So I'm hopeful that we figure something out to keep groundwater protection plan we have going. Discussion items, item 20, groundwater protection program update.
These two discussion items we will take on Monday.
Okay. Moving on to consent agenda consists of item 22, the approval of minutes, item 23, register of demands, and item 24, board compensation to consider the CWEA awards luncheon for compensation. Did we want to discuss any of these items today? Monday it is. Director's reports, unless anyone is chomping at the bit to do theirs today. We can Monday. General Manager's report, item 26. We have the finance report, public affairs report, and well 42.
I believe that our Director of Finance, Arturo Ceja, is prepared to give his finance report. Arturo?
Thank you, General Manager Macy, President Sewell, members of the board. Thank you for your question, Vice President Griffiths. As you can see, we do provide all of our capital improvement projects on the GM report in the different areas, whether it's ongoing, paused, completed, that kind of stuff. I would like to take this opportunity to also call out on all the managers and the support of the AGM and the GM to help me compile this information timely when I request it, because that will help me to provide you with that information that you're requesting. I did plan to provide you a little bit more details during this time. Looking at the current year capital improvement projects, at the bottom, the year-to-date amount is $3.4 million. And I want to remind you all that for the budget, we actually budgeted $44 million. That's a huge difference in what we budget to what we are actually performing. So there's a big discrepancy in what we're telling you we're going to be doing and what actually is happening just because of the constraints that we have. Just highlights of some of the major differences as to why you see 44 versus 3.5. Some of the projects that have been stalled or are in progress, the well 42 area M2, we're waiting for the state to release those, allow us to continue with that project. The terrace reservoirs, area A and G design, the admin building, and the last well 35, 34, and 35 intertie. And again, just a summary, which then leads me to the internal financials for the month of February, showing an increase from last year to current year of roughly $25 million in cash. Once we take out the $15 million for Wells Fargo, we're still at a $10 million increase. And primarily for that, if you can see in the operating expenses, actual to budget is higher, favorable of $5 million. And a lot of that is timing of the expenses. However, we do have a lot of significant changes from when we budgeted to what's happening, including some open positions and several other projects that we have not gotten around to in terms of the operating expenses. Some of that has to do with the technology items for the ERP system and a few others. But again, I just wanted to point out that that is primarily the difference. You can see the interest investment return is up to 4.41% compared to 0.74% last year. That's another reason for the increase in investment income. And at this point, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Arturo. Director Martin? Nope. Director Martin?
No, keep up the good work.
Director Duff?
Am I understanding that you're presenting today because you won't be here on Monday?
Correct.
I just realized that.
we can still address any of the questions that you may have.
Yeah, we'll be okay. This is a great presentation. Thank you for getting us back up to speed.
Sure.
Vice President?
Thank you for that information. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Arturo. And I have no questions. Great job.
Thank you.
Anything else on General Manager report for today?
Yes, Public Affairs Report. AGM Marion Champion would like to give you a brief update on
Good
Public
evening,
affairs.
everyone, and thank you. I'm going to make this quick. I am also not going to be here on Monday, so I did need to do my report today. But as always, this is going to be a short presentation that'll highlight some of our work with the Public Affairs Office in the past month. Of course, additional information is available in your packet. As expected, last month was filled with events and community engagement activities, including local groundbreaking events with the city for the Hacienda Street Improvements Project and the new police department annex. MSWD was also on the move at the state capitol, attending the Aqua Legislation Symposium and visiting State Senator Now you got me, Robert. Rosalicia Choabo and Assemblyman Greg Wallace. And in a separate trip to DC, we met with the offices of Senator Padilla and Congressman Ruiz, the Army Corps of Engineers, Aqua's Federal Affairs Representative Ian Lyle, and the majority and the minority staff from the Senate and House Energy and Water Appropriation Subcommittees. We also made time to attend the county's Senior Inspiration Awards, where our very own Sally Hedberg was honored for her numerous contributions to the DHS community. Sally is a regular at our MSWD Water 101 and our Water Talk events, so it was very nice for us to have the opportunity to show support for both her and the other honorees from throughout the valley. On the educational front, we also participated in career days at both Julius Corsini Elementary School and Desert Springs Middle School. Shout out to Public Affairs Specialist April Scott, Executive Assistant Dory Petit, and GIS Specialist Ryan Goodner Belli, I'm going to say his name wrong too, who visited the schools and shared their love of water with the students. I also wanted to touch base on the successful tours the district hosted on March 18th and 19th. We hosted 2 public and 1 new employee tour, which showcased our water and wastewater infrastructure. Feedback has been extremely positive, with many of the attendees remarking on how evident it is that our employees love their jobs, while others were thoroughly impressed with our staff's knowledge. We've even had a customer or 2 go on social media to make a positive post on our behalf. The feedback was so positive that we will be doing another round of tours later this fall. A special thank you to all of our employees who directly or indirectly helped with the tours, including Danny Friend, Annie Grunnett, Tim Owens, David Pena, Alex Nine, April Scott, Dory Petit, Robert Lopez, Jason Weekly, and Jeff Nutter. And speaking of Field Operations Superintendent Jeff Nutter, I also wanted to draw your attention to the DHS Rotary Big Hearts event, which was held on March 20th. Jeff has shown incredible dedication throughout trying situations, tirelessly working after hours and going above and beyond to ensure the community's safe and well-being. With 30 years of unwavering service, Jeff has faced countless challenges, and we couldn't have a better MSWD Person of the Year. Looking to the next month, there are quite a few more notable events, including our live stream blood drive, which is being held on April 23rd. Appointments are still available, so I hope all of you will consider donating. Next week, we'll also be very busy with both the CSDA Leadership Academy being held in La Quinta and the CWEA Annual Conference, which is being held in Palm Springs. As part of the conference, MSWD will be hosting a special tour Tuesday morning at the Nancy Wright Regional Water Reclamation Facility. Then on Thursday, CWA will be hosting its annual State Awards Luncheon, where MSWD will be honored for its community engagement efforts with a Best in State Award. Following the luncheon Thursday evening, there will be a special town hall with Senator Ochoa Bo. The event is taking place at City Hall and starts at 6:30 p.m. We have several other notable events during the month, including the CV-CAN Golf Tournament, Desert X closing ceremonies, and both of those of which MSWD is a water sponsor. We also have a special BIA reception, which will highlight Supervisor Perez and Assemblyman Wallace. More information is available through Dory's events calendar, or you can always reach out to Dory or myself. Another event I wanted to draw your attention to is our annual sponsorship of the Cabot's Museum Earth Day event, which is being held on Saturday, April 26th. This year's event will feature an updated 3D model of our watershed created by the Real Academy students. The museum will also be offering free tours between 10 and 3 p.m., and there will also be a resources table and activities, including an MSWD water table in the quad. In addition to the 3D model project, MSWD has been very busy this month hosting more Real Academy interns. In total, we've hosted 12 students this semester in various areas, including public affairs, GIS, wastewater production, construction and maintenance, and field services. In the last year, we've had 18 interns cross through our doors, and each of the students received 60 hours of on-the-job training. And MSWD has become one of the students' favorite options for their internships. We will bring our latest 8 interns to meet you in May. Last month's customer newsletter featured MSW rebate offerings, our Berkeley Springs Taste Award, and a special warning about tamarisk trees. This month's newsletter features a reminder to update your contact information, and in a nod to Earth Day, options for paperless for your bills, and also conservation as a way of life. During the past month, we've had 2 special micro campaigns that I will draw your attention to. The first is a reminder, as I mentioned, to update contact information. We like to remind customers at least twice a year to do that. The second one is a scam alert, reminding our customers to verify identity. If someone's claiming to be from the water agency and they knock on your door, take the time to verify their identity. An MSWD representative will have proper identification, an MSWD uniform, an MSWD vehicle, and they will not hesitate to provide their ID to help with customers' peace of mind. We also are reminding them to not hesitate to ask questions. If you have any doubts or concerns about the authenticity of the visit, MSWD representatives will be happy to address those concerns and provide information. And they will never ask to enter your home. Lastly, you can always call to confirm us at any time. If any doubts, reach out to us directly and customer service can confirm legitimacy of the visit. We are reminding customers it's always better to be safe than sorry, and we are very happy to assist. And lastly, I did want to let you know that our Follow and Like Us campaign is still going strong. To date, we've added more than 130 new Facebook followers and more than 50 new Instagram followers since we started the campaign a few months ago. And that concludes my update today. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, Director Duff?
Great work.
Vice President?
Great work. We'll miss you next week.
I miss you too.
Director Martin?
Always outstanding.
Thank
you.
Director Martin? And I'll just say, I'm really glad to hear the tour went well. I don't know if it needs to be twice a year, but I'd really like to see it an annual thing where we can hopefully keep getting the public involved. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well 42 discussion today.
No, we can handle that on Monday.
Okay. Item 27, District Council comments. Item 28, Director comments and requests. Director Martin? Director Myerhoffen? Director Duff? Vice President?
Oh, no.
Ooh, so I have some today. I'll just say a big thank you to everybody in the room. This probably is the longest board meeting I've ever done in my almost 8 years here. And thank you to staff. I know you guys are getting close to probably 12-hour workday, but I just wanted to say, I think we function better as a team when we all respect each other. And I know sometimes comments are made that are playful or intended to be playful, but I never want any of us to feel guilty to dive deeper, ask questions. I think today being a long meeting made it more difficult, but it's our responsibility as board members to get all the information we need. So thank you. With that, the meeting's adjourned.